Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of FY Global Talks. I'm very excited for this particular episode, maybe a little more excited than usual. I've got two very talented individuals that you may have heard of, and I will introduce both of them to you in just a bit. But they're here representing none other than Wipfli. So when I think of Wipfli, I think of the following words. There's no one size fits all approach to navigating disruptive conditions, but that doesn't mean middle market businesses should stand still. Resilient organizations must prepare for downside risks, position to seize opportunities, and stay what? Agile. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Wipfli to this podcast. And going more specific about the two talented individuals I was telling you about, I've got Michelle and Robert. But let's go through first Michelle Berkevin. She is indeed a certified public accountant. She is, of course, a partner at Wipfli Advisory LLC. Over 2 decades of experience in public accounting consulting, ladies and gentlemen. Michelle, welcome to the program. If you want to say a quick hello before I move on to Robert.
No, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have a great conversation today. So thanks.
My pleasure to have you with us, Michelle. And when we have our second guest of the day, we have Robert Zondak. Robert is also a partner at Wipfli Advisory LLC. He brings leadership experience as an entrepreneur and executive in financial services. Robert, welcome to the program. You want to say a quick hello to our audience, and we'll dive in deep into today's topic.
Thank you for the kind introduction, sir. Much appreciated. Look forward to the conversation also.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to dive in deep, and I want to just kind of start everything off with how we got to this point where the three of us decided to come together and talk about this particular topic. So, I've been advising CPA firms for decades now on how to grow their practice, how to improve their operations and their business performance. And then one day, as all of us go through our LinkedIn profiles, I came across, I believe, an article or some sort of a post from Wipfli that was about how Wipfli is offering fractional COO services to their businesses. And immediately in my mind, I was thinking, when I think of an accounting firm, that is not the first thing that comes to my mind, right? And so I got really interested and I start to bug Michelle about it. And Michelle, you were kind enough, generous enough to give me your time and let us dive in a little deeper. And you made the introduction to Robert. And it's been a pleasure getting to know the ins and outs of how the fractional CFO operates within the firm. But I want to go to the genesis of how that came about. So you guys are an accounting firm. At some point, you decided, you know what? We're going to get into COO type services. How did that come about? How long have you guys been doing it? What was the reason behind it, Michelle? If you can bring our audience up to speed on that, it would be much appreciated.
Yeah, I think from the beginning, I can't say how long we've been doing it. I think our firm has evolved so much over the years, really leaning into the traditional accounting firm that we used to be. As the industry changes and as the needs of our clients change, we have grown organically and through mergers and acquisitions, finding great talented people and firms like Robert, that Robert was a part of, that had these experiences, knowing that the middle market companies that we tend to serve and where we feel we can bring the most value to our clients is through all of these
Wait. Did I hear this right? Robert was a client of the firm first? Is that what you meant?
Yeah, I believe. Yep.
Yeah.
He sure was.
Okay. All right.
So as we grew as a firm and really took a look at our clients and how we can really support them not only through their financial infrastructure or finances or doing the traditional things like an audit and a tax return. It's really looking at their business as a whole and how we can provide some, different perspectives and different ideas coming to the table and really trying to look at them holistically and operationalize them even that way. And a lot of these companies may not need somebody full time because it's maybe they're not that big yet. They have aspirations to get bigger. So coming in and setting up a great foundation fractionally just made a lot of sense to us.
So how quickly did you guys jump on this particular opportunity? Did it take a long time for it to come to be where it is, or no, you guys were able to hit the ground running when you started?
I'll pass that to Robert.
Yeah.
I would say it's an evolution. Michelle and I can talk to experience of us working together on clients. Mm-hmm. I think it's a natural extension when you provide that trusted advisor space to say, I have other partners or I have other team members that can bring some perspective to what you need to accomplish to add value to your business, value to your organization. Mm-hmm. And so I think it became this outward thinking and this mindset of saying, like, I really value the team that we have here. And if I want to do the best thing for my client, we have to have holistic conversations. So I think, yes, there was an intention that we need to grow outsourcing because we are in a gig economy. There is that need now. But I think we had the right infrastructure, and all along we've been investing in not only traditional accounting services, which are the core of who we are, but business solutions and organizational performance, because I think regardless of where you sit in the firm, you understand that for us to be a trusted advisor, we need different pieces of the puzzle. No different than if you run a family practice and then you need a specialist in orthopedics or pediatrics. I think, Michelle, did I state that right for us?
Yeah. That's kind of, I think I can think back to one of the first times I worked with Robert was I had a client, and a lot of times, when we're talking with clients, it just things come up out of pure curiosity and just trying to learn. And, one of the questions, it's so cliche, and I don't think I use these words because I try not to use it, but what keeps you up at night situation, right? Of trying to change that conversation from just finance, but let's just talk about business. How's business? And at the time he was like, wow, we just, there's a lot of change going on. From this conversation, it's like, okay, well, I know this guy, Robert, who let me just pull him in for a conversation. We don't go in intentionally trying to even sell anything. It's really just, he has a way different perspective and experience than I have. Let me just bring him to the table. Let's have a conversation and see where it goes. And a lot of times I feel like that's kind of how it gets started, right? And then before you know it, we're like, oh, we're doing this thing, outsourcing. It just happens naturally a lot of the times.
You're providing fractional leadership services. Let's call it that, I guess, is because it's not just.
Oh, I like that.
It's because it's not, I mean, you tell me, Michelle, it's not just about a fractional operating officer. There's all kinds of other leadership services. I think, Robert, you and I have had many conversations about that as well. So kind of encompasses all those things, right? How would you define it?
Define what exactly?
Is it all those things? Is it some of it? Does it involve the fractional CEO services? Or is it just kind of like depending on what the clients need?
I think a lot of times it depends on the client. And Robert, I don't know your experience, but I think it just depends on the talent they have. It's always different.
Always different. Yeah.
I think as we've grown the service, and Michelle and I have had conversations because they don't always end right. I think we've gone, at least from saying, there are some things you can outsource effectively in the long term. There are other things that are fractional in nature or burst expertise. We've talked about that. And so I think as we've grown, and anyone who's considering doing this type of work, you have to get real clarity of what the swim lane is and what the promise to the customer, because it is not right for everyone. There is an investment or a cost that a client has to consider, and there's a right time and place. Some of it's very long term. You might be able to outsource certain functions for a very long time more effectively, and there are other things that might be more fractional in nature. I think it takes leadership like Michelle or myself or other partners and our team members to be able to articulate that to the client, because you can't just say outsourcing. Well, that means a lot of things. And there's a lot of solutions in that space, from technology to traditional consulting. But I think it's really having a mindset that we have this human capital in the firm. We have this ability to solution for the customer. Sometimes it's fractional, sometimes it's outsourcing, sometimes just burst expertise. Michelle, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, we've been doing this a long time. I work a lot in the tech space, so a lot of the acronyms I use of, fail fast, right? So there were some mistakes we've made. There's a lot of things we've learned by that, though. We always look at it as opportunity. There is part of, like, when we're looking, a lot of this space as your ideal client, right? And part of that is that a fit for them? Because it isn't always a fit. Like, you have to have a very open mind about it. And some people are just built in a way where they want someone who's physically with them all the time. They want to go down and walk down the hall, touch and feel their desk, per se. And they want to be able to pick them up at any moment's notice and have something react right away. Where the more fractional, and even both fractional and outsourcing, is a little different. You need to have a little more patient, because there's a lot of intention and there's reasons why we approach something a certain way, because we know it works. But so you have to have a frame of mind to almost give up some of the purpose of wanting to, have it done your way and it has to be this way, because a lot of times that's all they know and it's worked before for them. But in this situation, it's very different. And if you want your company to evolve and change, you have to be willing to also change as an owner. So.
Yeah, that really resonates with me, because there's a lot of times that we come across CPA firms that, we have to have that conversation with them, right? That, hey, there's a process we have, and you have to trust the process. And if you don't agree with the process, then we're not a fit. But ultimately, there's a process that has proven itself over time, and that's the conversation you guys typically have with But what are some typical situations you guys come across when you first encounter businesses?
So there's so many different reasons. Since COVID, a lot of it, everyone's having challenges of hiring the right people. There might not be a hard time hiring people, but it's the right person, right? The right skill set. So a lot of times what we're finding is either someone was in such a role and then they decided to move on, or someone's in a role and they decided it's not a fit. They don't have the right skill set or the vision where we want our company to be, and they kind of decide to part ways. So then we're brought in a lot of times on a fractional basis, just temporary, just to kind of be a little bit more cohesive. Let's put some process around how some things are being met, with the intention of then it's buying us time to then find that right person. But as Robert said before, a lot of times what happens, especially maybe not in the COO space, but in like the CFO or the outsourced accounting space, we'll come in and do it temporarily. And then they realize, wow, we can get like the same amount of work done that's actually quicker, actually has a process around it that's a little bit more professionalized without having to hire someone. And then we're not also having to worry about benefits and having to worry about paying payroll taxes and having to worry about if someone gives 2 weeks notice, now what do we do? It takes that burden away from them. But, so those are a lot of the typical situations that we have, at least.
Do you also train if they were to hire someone, you go through that training process to get them up to speed with the things you've been putting in place, right?
Yeah, so
Oh,
I've even had clients hire me to help vet them out and like
mhm.
interview with for them or with them, you know what I mean, and
Mm.
kind of get it down to a place where okay, we have two candidates here, and then kind of help through their decision making process of who would be a fit for them. So there's just so many different ways where we can help our clients, even if it's not like a long term situation, but help them to set them up to succeed.
Can I just thank you, Michelle, on behalf of all the businesses out there, because the thing is the one major flaw in the recruiting industry in general, when you're talking about a typical recruiting agency, is
Mhm.
that it's just a matter of they sometimes look at the resumes and it's just very, very pragmatic in a sense that it doesn't take into consideration what is actually happening, what is the role, is it very well defined? It's not just a process of getting the right words down on the job description. It's way deeper than that, which is what I'm getting from what you guys do is go into the depth of what is actually needed for the business and how is a role defined is what I think I heard from you, right?
Yeah, and I think too, we do our best, as Robert mentioned before, with like
Mhm.
that outward mindset of could we convince them, yes, keep us on because it would be more revenue for us. But in the end, when you really know your client and be like, listen, you really need someone to hire full time because you
Yeah.
need someone that's going to be your right hand person. And so there are instances where we make that decision of like, listen, we would love to do this for you full time all the time, but it's just one, probably too expensive for you. Two, you just need someone. You need someone, but we're going to set the foundation for you so that then that when that person comes in, they're set up to succeed versus having to figure it all out themselves.
Yeah. So how, because when I'm hearing all of this, to me, it feels like from your perspective, it feels like a minefield you're walking on in terms of things going out of scope, right? And so, Robert, if you can bring some clarity in how you define your scope in such a way that it doesn't take you guys by surprise and you're able to deliver that quality that you deliver. And how do you do that? How do you manage to balance that?
I think it's a great question. I will go back to something that Michelle said, and part of it is it's a learning experience.
Mhm.
I think when you're in a firm, if it was a firm for listeners that are so rigid on this has to be perfect or there's this goal in mind. So as you start these services, I'd recommend giving yourself a little grace because
Mhm.
it does get better in scoping, I think, in the long run. For my team, we definitely have what Michelle was talking about. Tell us why you want this position. Tell us what you see the position doing. We generally put some bands and collars. We might say, for this price, you're going to get this level of service or this many hours. We will write it for this long. If we exceed it, we're going to have a conversation with you. And we also have some good conversations when it's time to exit. Sometimes it's just not a good fit, and that's okay.
Mm.
Like, I'd rather have us leave as friends. You use other services at the firm. So it is a learning curve, I think, is the best way to say it. And it's very industry specific.
Mhm.
So Michelle contacted our group and needed someone in hospitality recently. And I said, oh, we have a great person. Well, Michelle on my team, not a different Michelle,
It was a
another
different
Michelle.
Michelle,
I
yes.
see.
Yeah.
Okay.
She would have the ability to sit with Michelle on this call and say, like, when you're talking about this type of entity, this is what it really means. When you're in financial services, this is what it means. So I think you have to have a little bit of perspective or knowledge of the industry you're going to scope it also.
Wow. So you have obviously one of the big advantages of Wipfli is that you have a variety of resources available to you, and you're able to tap into any of that at any location, anywhere. Is that right?
I
Yeah,
think
we're
so.
all
Don't we
over.
have pretty good neural network, Michelle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. If you're, not only you provide these services to directly to clients, but you also work alongside other CPA firms who may not provide these types of services, and you partner with them to help their clients, I believe, right? Can you elaborate a little bit on that for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, yes, we actually partner with firms all the time, especially ones that aren't quite as large as we are, maybe don't have the capacity or the skill set or the team structure even structured yet. So, we look at other firms as friends. We're all in this together. We all of us want to make that whatever business that is, they want to succeed. It only helps everybody in the end. We also believe that, giving, helping and supporting our other firms that are friends, everything will always come back to us in a positive way. You never
Right.
know
Right.
who you speak to or who you help. Because we're going to need help too. Just because we're such a large firm doesn't necessarily mean we even have, whatever experiences that may be necessary for a certain client of ours. It could be very specific situation or industry. I had a recent instance where it was an industry we weren't in. So I picked up the phone, called one of my friends at another firm, and said, "Hey, I know you guys do this. They're out in Los Angeles. It was one of those like very specific entertainment situations where
Yeah.
um, we just don't have that experience, So like I think it would always come back because then they might have an experience, same thing, So, and we always walk into these situations acknowledging together, like we're not here to kind of take over. We're here to just do this one thing because you never know. You never know how your cross will pass again in the future.
You're only as strong as your network, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. We have a mixture of listeners. We have, of course, businesses that are listening right now, and we have CPA firms that are also listening. So if you are a CPA firm and you're looking to provide these types of services, or you have been providing, and you just want to go ahead and outsource that to Wipfli, I don't think you can get it anywhere better than what Wipfli has to offer with their process and their resources. They are second to none. Now, by the way, Robert, as I listened to you explaining about the services, we've had several conversations before this particular podcast, and the common theme that comes up is that you've got a chaotic situation that the client comes up with, right? And then you've got to put some order into it. Now, usually, in my particular experience, two things may happen. Either the client's chaotic situation makes our process in the way we do things chaotic, or we're able to influence them and put some order into place with what they're going through. Um, and that's where I think we had the earlier conversation about maybe this is not a fit, is when you realize that that chaos is starting to encroach on your own processes and the way you operate, right? But can you give us a little bit of a some samples and examples of what this chaos is, and what do you guys do to go ahead and bring some order into it and not let it influence you guys internally?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One of my mentors told me a long time ago, never work harder than your client. And one of
Mm.
the things that I try and do with the direct team that I have the pleasure of leading, and it makes my job easy because I have true professionals that are on my team. When we start to feel that we're taking on more of the problem, it's not a co-sourcing anymore, or it's not a relationship that's really generative, then it's time to exit. And I think it's being aware of it. There are going to be times, of course, where you're stepping in, the client needs help, you
Mm.
care for the client, you understand the issues, that it's going to be a little bit of chaos. But I think there's a difference between a point in time chaos than maybe a situation where you know that this is not a long-term client, because they're never going to evolve. It's not going to be generative. They can't really take what you're trying to provide them to heart. And I think that is the perspective that I try and bring to my team, especially when they're stressed out. Everyone's stressed out. We live in kind of this cortisol bath world. And so I think it's really saying, what is the reason we're here? Are we being clear? Are we asking the client to step up? Are we delivering what we said? I think sometimes the chaos comes, and it happens at every firm. If we're truthful, it happens at Wipfli. Are we really creating some of the chaos because we're not doing what we said we would do to begin with? When I keep that in mind, I think it makes a difference. Michelle leads a team of remarkable people that do the outsourcing, and I can only imagine stepping into some of the things she does. I don't know, Michelle, if you have some words of wisdom there.
Oh boy.
Where do I begin, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've seen it all. There are some instances we step in when we know it's going to be stressful because someone left. It was a quick exchange. There's not a lot of information for us to kind of pick up. It can get a little contentious at times because there's an expectation from, say, the client. Well, you know what you're doing. You should be able to come in here and just turn this thing around in a week. And they don't realize you have to almost figure out the mess and the chaos first before you can then kind of course correct. So a lot of it, I think, at the end of the day, when we start sensing that their chaos might be kind of taking over our team, we tend to put, like, say, a timeout, right? Timeout, um, and have some at times an uncomfortable conversation, like Robert said, because sometimes it's just not a fit. It's not going to work. And listen, we love our clients, and they're the reason why we do what we do. But our associates and the people that work for us are really, really important to us, and they're the reason why we also do what we do. And they're the reason why Robert and I look as good as we do because of the people that are working for us.
Yeah, they're the
So,
unsung heroes, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
So when it
yeah.
gets to the point where it's affecting them emotionally, and, it could have a chance of someone could, walk away on my side. I take that very seriously. And that's when that conversation from that higher level, it's almost like the CEO and a partner have that conversation, because the CEO may not realize how his team is reacting to this. And it's because a lot of times they may not have communicated the intention of bringing us in. Some people, they might feel, oh, someone's going to take my job away from me. They're here because, they instantly make the story up in their mind. And Robert, maybe I'm sure you agree, if you can kind of almost stop and level set when that chaos happens and be very vocal and transparent with the why you're there and what the outcome's going to be. How are they going to feel? I mean, that makes a big difference. Like, if you can imagine how you're going to feel at the end of this and feel so much better, I think it makes a difference.
Yeah,
Most
yeah.
of But there are times even after that we're like, thank you so much for your time. But I think it's better we just kind of
Yeah,
play and
yeah. You have
I,
yeah, go ahead, Robert.
I think there are two things there that Michelle made me think of. The first that we've learned is it's really important to onboard properly. Now, there are going to be moments of chaos where we try and have to step in, but in generally, what I've tried to do with the team, and I know Michelle has done, is like there's a set process on how we onboard. So any firm that's listening that's going to do this, and requirements that the client has to do, like you have to get us access. There's going to be an onboarding fee because it takes time. We're going to level set, like it's going to be 30 days or 60 days if we can, just like as you had a new employee. So I think part of it is being really clear on the onboarding. And then I love what Michelle said. It made me think, like, oftentimes I'll be at the kickoff and I'll introduce the lead person on my team who's going to do it. And I'll say, you're in great hands. I will be there to check in, hopefully, as a good thing. But by the way, you may not want to call for me at certain times if my team isn't given the respect, that they deserve, given the facts and circumstances of what you're asking them to do. So those are two things that I think Michelle reminded me of.
Yeah. Tell me if this resonates with you. I've come up to situations where um, the situation is chaotic, but there's a sense of calm about it, where the client is experiencing an emergency or something that is going on, but there's a sense of calmness about it. And where I'm going with this is that I've realized that over the years, there are two particular components that impact chaos with any client, frankly. One is their personality, and two is their habits, which could be the same, right? And depending on their personality. And because look, it's life, and life doesn't stop because you're in business. People move, you lose people, you gain some, you lose clients, you lose customers, you gain new customers, new clients. Laws change, impacts of business. There's various things that can happen that creates chaos. But the thing that impacts that the most is the personality of the leadership in the business and their habits. Does this resonate with both of you? And how do you deal with that? How do you deal with changing habits if you see some habits that are perhaps sabotaging the goal of the engagement?
I'll jump in. I have a good idea of
Hmm.
what you're saying because, yes, I think the personality of who's going to be interacting with your team is important. I think it's along the lines of outsourcing versus fractional. Let's say, for instance, we're going a true outsourcing situation. We intend for an extended period of time to provide services. We should have a good idea then of this is a good personality fit because we're going to be interacting all the time. We're going to be basically your department or your whatever you're hiring us for. Fractional, that's where I think Michelle and I could probably put up with a little bit grumpier, ornery uh, personality because we're there for a finite period of time
Hmm.
and it's not a marriage, so to speak. So I think it impacts how we define what we're doing for them. And I think it goes back to what Michelle was saying. We can enter in chaos. We're going to level set with the team. We're going to provide some emotional support. That's totally different than saying, hey, we think this is a good long-term fit. I don't know, Michelle, if you agree.
Yeah, I mean, there are some instances, and we don't tend to figure this out until almost it's too long gone. As far as, I think we all go in the intention of, you know, this person had a bad day, or because everybody has a bad day, right? But there are times where, because a lot of times when you're coming in, especially on the outsourcing side of where it's more long term, you are making changes. And then that's where it's very quickly where you find if a leader or a leadership team doesn't want to change. So, because the worst thing we want, even in a fractional basis, is that we come in and we make change. And then as soon as we leave, they kind of go back to their old ways. So there are times too where we have brought in where we get a situation where there possibly could be where we're just we're collaborating enough, or there's something there and we just can't figure it out. Well, so we'll even bring in our teams in our operational side where they will do like a predictive index, capabilities test or
Hmm.
assessment.
Hmm.
And so it helps us really understand, okay, this is just how they are. Because there's one thing to have a habit, there's another thing where it's just naturally ingrained as you are a person. So, okay, well, if that's how you are, then I need to be a little more agile in how I approach you or how we report to you. And sometimes it's as simple as, they might be ornery because you're doing it a way that they're just not understanding because they're not used to it. So if you can
Yeah.
even change your language of like, okay, I get it now. You are more comfortable with us picking up the phone, giving you a quick call. Because if I send you a long email, you're likely not going to read it. And then, you're probably not doing what we're asking you to do because our team is probably sending you a long email that you don't want to read. So you're not reading it. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like, and then it's one of those things where a lot of times there's usually a solution to something like that, but you've got to be creative and like how you approach it and how you can be open to change. But that other person has to be also open to get some feedback of, wow, you're having someone who, we step in sometimes in situations where this team and the client have been working together for 30 years. So they all know each other so well. And now you have someone else coming in and like, who is this? And why are they asking so many questions? And,
Yeah.
and they sometimes think automatically it's the negative thing. And it's usually just out of pure curiosity of us all, but it can make people feel a certain kind of way. And it can be the way that they act could be looked at as a habit, but it's more of just how they are as a person and just how
Do
they're.
you, Michelle, you brought up your team. Do you guys have a formal or informal training to help your team kind of understand what are the best ways of dealing with these nuances? Or are you just usually dealing with with personalities that are capable of handling those things?
We do formal training. We internally as a firm use predictive index. So we use it with each other. Like
Mhm.
a lot of us even have like what type of person we are in our teams. So if Robert looks me up, he knows exactly I'm a maverick. This is what it means, and this is how, Michelle likes to be communicated with or whatever. So all of us are formally trained. When we hire for Wipfli, everyone we interview takes a predictive index because kind of like we were talking about before of you can interview someone and I can say that about myself now. I am a great interview person when you interview me because I can make it sound like I can do anything. But and I've been in that situation where that's why they don't ask me to interview anymore because I just believe everybody and I want to help everybody until we did this predictive index and someone says, "Oh, this is how I do it and I'm going to do it." And they know what you want to hear. And then you look at their report and you're like, well, you don't operate that way. You're very detail oriented. You need a specific process and you're interviewing for a role because consulting is more chaos, right?
Yeah.
It is one of those you walk into it, you don't know exactly what you're walking into. So sometimes you can't have someone who's naturally drawn to needs to know exactly what's going to happen, what they're going to do. And I did that. That's where one of the things you learn in your career, like I really liked this person. And then I put them in a situation where they weren't like supposed to be naturally. And then she left crying and I felt terrible. And that's where you learn. I'm like, I got to lean into this predictive index thing more. It actually works.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
absolutely, oh, sorry.
no, go
I was
ahead,
absolutely
Robert.
going to agree with Michelle because I think the thing that I've learned through using it is also team selling, or when you're doing outsourcing or fractional, you need a team. The CEO may have, she may be someone who is in a certain work style, and she may work really well with myself. She might be
Yeah.
in results and discipline, the area that I'm in. She is having a team that's in precision or process. So I may have to say, you know what, I really have to thoughtfully consider people on my team and really have a group approach. And so I think any of your listeners, it does take exactly what Michelle's saying. There is a DNA within the firm that is going to cause you to be able to do these services. And it does mean a group approach to management of accounts. When you were asking before we started recording about changes, I think some of the things we're going through is how do we get better at the customer or client experience through a team-based approach, because people like Michelle and myself are seeing it work. And so I think when you do fractional or outsourced, you have to have a couple of touch points. You might have one primary, But that I think also helps stem the tide of chaotic situation.
Mhm.
Yeah, it takes a small village to help any business. So you definitely want to introduce the small village. You want to promote the village, and you want to. I think when I speak with partners of firms, I don't think they do enough promoting of their team members, right? Because not because they're consciously not doing it. It's just that you when you're running a firm, you're busy, you're doing things, and that's just not something that it's on your mind, and it's got to be something intentional. And of course, I think that it helps that you have the resources to be able to do that versus a smaller firm, which I think that's probably one of the reasons why many firms partner up with you is because you're able to do that for them. So again, if you are a firm listening and you're thinking about, and why would you want to help your clients improve their business? If you are an accounting firm, just stick with accounting. Let go of why would you even want to do any of that? Well, I'm obviously I have to work on my sarcasm, but in case you didn't pick it up, I was being sarcastic because the fact of the matter is that the better your clients do, the better you will do. And if you haven't made that connection yet and you think I'm going to stay in my lane and just do my thing, which is accounting, I'll do their returns, we'll do tax planning, we'll do this, but you are obviously you have a lot more resources and talent to do way more than that for the clients. And I think we have a moral obligation in some ways. If we have what we have and we don't use it to improve the lives of our clients in any matter, then we're, I think, falling short of that standard. And I so appreciate what Wipfli is doing with the resources because power is in the numbers and also in the quality of the people you have. And you've got some great quality folks that are part of the team that both of you have mentioned. So it's been an interesting journey to see how you guys are impacting the industry. Do you know do you consider any other firm as a competition that is your size that does something similar to this? Or you guys are just kind of like your head is in the game and you're just trying to win the race?
I grew up as an athlete, so
Okay.
there's
What sport? What
also
sport?
swimming. I was a swimmer, a
Okay.
collegiate swimmer.
Mhm.
Um, I don't really look at it as a competition. I think there's so many businesses in in the world, essentially, right? Because
Mhm.
we are, even for us, we have clients all over the world. It's not just here where I live in Pennsylvania, you know what I mean, or in the Midwest or West Coast. They're all over. So I think we all also can just learn from each other, right? So I
Right.
have many peers in other firms that are just do what I do, and we don't really compete. We share the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because I think at the end of the day, like I said, the good will always come back to you. If you always have that good intention. So I don't really look at it as too much of a competition, although I don't like losing either. So
It's the other side of the pancake.
yeah.
Robert.
I would agree with Michelle. I think the partnership at Wipfli is very driven. I think that's a thing that really unifies us and
Mhm.
not driven to best others, but driven to succeed as a firm. And I think that's been one of the ways that has propelled us forward in looking at how we're going to deliver services, how our teams can start coming together so that we can have this trusted advisor status. I'd invite your listeners to really ask themselves truthfully, am I a trusted advisor? To Michelle's point, a trusted advisor may mean at certain points saying, we're not the best fit. Or even if we have that service and it's something that you probably wouldn't do the best delivery on, you have to be open and honest about it. I think if you bring that mentality, you're going to win. Like Michelle, I'm competitive, so I always want our team to win. But I think asking yourself, if I'm going to be a trusted advisor in the long game, what should we be doing to build that trust? Because the client always knows. The client always knows.
I want to kind of add something to that too, that we're working on even in our firm, because there would be times even where maybe our firm is a fit, but maybe that initial relationship isn't a fit. Maybe it's someone been with this client for 30 years, kind of grew up with this client. However, they're in a situation now, or they're a larger size where maybe you as a person just don't have that experience. So you want to bring in somebody. Don't be afraid to bring in another partner into the conversation. Maybe kind of lead that now, kind of almost pass the torch to the next person. And I think that shows that you're really looking out for your client beyond your just personal relationship. You really want them to succeed. So you're giving them a gift of someone who will be able to take them to the next level.
Yeah. I mean, the last person you want to trust is the person that says, trust me. Right.
Yeah.
So
Trusted advisor. That's why that word's there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's
those situations, that's fun. I've done it where now I get to be, there's someone else who in our firm, the term is a relationship executive, and I just get to be the fun one that takes them out to dinner and do, do all the fun things. So there's always benefits to that too.
Yeah, absolutely. The hard work you put into it, Michelle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Having a good time with the clients. I always say, trust is it's best when it's demonstrated rather than the word is used. And the best way to demonstrate trust is through genuinely caring, and sometimes caring for clients, meaning it means that, hey, we're not the best person for you. We're not the best firm to do this for you. And let me bring in some other people that can help you with this. And those are I think sowing the seeds, sort of say, for what who knows what's going to come up in the future. But nevertheless, I appreciate the approach you guys have in keeping it honest, right? With the team, with yourselves, with the clients, with what is possible for us to do. And look, we all fall short of that standard of perfection. And I think the more people, I always say this, uh, you get in trouble in life if everybody thinks you're way better than who you really are. And you will have the best time in life if everybody thinks you're actually worse than you really are. Because where I'm going with that is that it's just having a transparent communication with the clients that, if you fall short, it's just to own it, basically. And I appreciate you, Robert, bringing that up on multiple occasions. I think that's what you do with the clients. I think if you're listening and you're wondering, how can I develop trust with clients? I think this is a sure way of doing that. It's just keeping that honesty with them. When things are bad, you tell them they're bad, and when things are good, they're good. Yeah. I think as we bring this into a close, guys, what sort of advice, recommendation you have for our listeners? Anything you want to say and as we bring the program to a close?
Ms. I'll let you go first.
Okay. I would just say, just be open-minded, really, really have deep conversations with your clients. I've had instances where I couldn't get past beyond them thinking of me as just an accountant. So I wasn't afraid to bring in someone else at the table with me to kind of drive change to the conversation and how their perspective of our firm is. I really, truly believe that is something that works. So if you're struggling with that, just be open to that. Bring someone else to the table that has a completely different perspective and background than you have, to just drive a change to that conversation and really get into those deep conversations.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Robert, what do you have to say?
I think there's two things. One, building on what Michelle says, you have to believe this is good work and this is rewarding work. If you believe that, then I think that'll pass through to the customer. So I think anyone listening, like, it's not always going to be easy, but it should be good work. It should be rewarding work. I think the second is we're all facing this thing called AI. Our firm's facing it, anyone who's a CPA firm or a consulting firm. And at the basis of it is saying, am I a trusted advisor? Do I bring value and knowledge? Because the processes may change and we have to evolve. And I love that you're having this podcast, because if a firm is in a much more traditional approach, I think now's the time to think about it. We need CPAs. They are so relevant to the business cycle. And so how is your firm going to evolve?
Great question. Great question. And a great topic for our next podcast, I think. We can probably dive deeper into that. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate you being part of this. Michelle, great talk with you and with Robert. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Zondak and Michelle Berkebin. Wipfli is the name of the firm. You all know it. Appreciate you being here for FY Global Talks. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.